buried in a grave without a vault. It's usually in an open field or under trees. There's no marking except the field stone, and you go back to nature just like as you came. So it's a new thing. There's a few cemeteries. There's one in Harrisonburg, there's one in Bellsville, but it's the newest trend, going green. Because green means there's no energy wasted in the process of burying, no embalming, no chemicals, those type of things. Where cremation does use energy. It uses energy for the propane gas to run a crematory. Cremation, on the other hand, is very simple. Basically, your body is cremated. Any metal parts are taken out and recycled, like a titanium hip, or screws, or plates, or those type of things. What you get back is pulverized bone after about 3 hours of the cremation process. And the cremains can be scattered. Some places do have regulations, so you need to check. You don't want to scatter them on the beach when somebody's laying on the beach. That's not cool. I don't think anybody would like to have your loved one blown on them. So you should do it privately, but you also want to make sure you remove the tag that's in there, because that traces you all the way back to Blileys. So if you do something that isn't appropriate, and if that tag's found, we'll have to let them know that your loved one's remains. You could have some fines involved. So you need to be careful what you do with cremains. Cremains today, anything can be done. They can be put into jewelry, they can be put in necklaces, wristbands, all kinds of things. I can send you to the moon. I can put you in fireworks. I can put you in shotgun shells and shoot you into the field, and even into a bass lure to go fishing with. So there's a lot of things today that you wouldn't realize with cremation that are cremains. Even the urns that go into the home today, some are real artifacts. You couldn't tell it's a cremains unless somebody told you or there's a name on it. They make bird baths, sundials, wind chimes, all kinds of things with cremains. And a lot of people are taking cremains and spreading them out with family members, so each family member gets a piece of the loved one. So there's a lot of things you can do with cremation as well. You don't have to be embalmed for cremation, but you do have to have the medical examiner examine your body before the cremation to give us an authorization to go forward. And in the state of Virginia, you have to be identified before the cremation. So that means somebody has to come in and see you before the cremation to say that it's actually you. Because unfortunately hospitals do make mistakes. Yes?
Yes, sir. What is the pricing for the green funerals?
It can depends where it's going.
Okay.
But they can be $10,000 or $20,000, depending on where the lots sometimes are pretty expensive because they just grow. They don't mow them. They don't do anything. It just goes back to nature. So it depends on what cemetery you're talking about and so on. But it's less for the funeral side because we're not doing any embalming. We're just using sometimes a shroud or a basic wood container that'll just go back to the earth. And there's usually no service or anything of that type, just at the cemetery maybe.
Okay.
So it can vary. Yes, ma'am.
People should check if they're religious. There are certain religions that you have to.
That's right. If you're Catholic, most religions permit cremation. The Catholics didn't for a long time. They do today. The Jewish rite does not permit cremation. If you're Orthodox, Catholics are supposed to. They can be cremated, but they want the urn in church, and they want the cremains to stay together. You're not supposed to separate them. They're supposed to be buried in consecrated ground. So with the Catholic religion, you're pretty specific, even though I have other people I've talked to that aren't going to follow everything that's said, the doctrine. But you're right, absolutely. There are certain religious groups or certain things, just like the Hindus. The Hindus, they do cremation. The eldest son has to see the loved one placed into the cremation chamber, and the eldest son has to start the cremation process. That's part of their ritual to work through the death. So every group or every religion has some boundaries as well as to what they'll permit or not. You're seeing a lot of celebration of life today. Celebration of life is really what the person was all about. Their hobbies, their interests, what music they like, what passages of scripture or book readings. Making the service more personal than a cookie cutter service. So it's more about the person having their fishing rods or having their guns or their flowers in the room, celebrating their life, pictures of the family and the events that they had, camping or vacations or weddings. It's more about the celebration of that life and what was important. It's important to have all those things though. When you don't have any of those things, you don't work through the grieving process. It's been proven that if you don't work through the grieving process, it will affect you in the long term because you haven't worked through the death. If you don't see the person before the cremation, you may question whether they ever actually died. It's a mental thing, it doesn't work. So you need to see the person. And we provide that for our families where everybody can come in and see the loved one prior to the cremation, if they have a cremation, or a burial, private burial with no visitation. The family has time to come in and say goodbye. Because it's important. It's important to be able to realize the death and move forward with life. Because if you don't, you question it. It's just like losing somebody at sea or somebody that's been murdered and they haven't found the body. That family wants closure. And the only way they get closure is by getting their loved one back and knowing they've been buried or cremated or whatever they decide to do. So it's pretty important to have a plan of action for yourself. So, how many of you have cemetery property already? Okay. You did that part, that's half of it. The other part is the funeral part, getting those things done. What you want spent on a casket, maybe what you want spent on a service, what type of service you want. Do you want it in church? Do you want it in the funeral home chapel? Do you want graveside? Or do you want a memorial service where there's nobody present and just a celebration of life at church or the funeral home chapel? Those are things to decide on. Just like your favorite song. We may think our children know everything, but trust me, they don't. What passages in the Bible? It may be Amazing Grace. It may be Leonard Skinner on the way out of the funeral home. It could be anything that you want. You know, that's important to celebrate your life. And they need that to work through the closure because their friends are going to come and they're going to share memories of your mom or dad or your loved one with you. And that's how you work through the grieving process. If you don't have it, think about it for a moment. And I had this happen with a lady who wanted no services because her husband said, just cremate me and get it over with. I don't want anything. I don't care about any of this stuff. So I advised her at the time we made arrangements that she should have at least a memorial service in some place to bury him. She said, no, I'm going to follow his wishes, no obituary in the paper. A week later, she's calling me on the phone and says, I want to meet with Mr. Christopher again. She says, you're absolutely right. He was wrong. I listened to what he wanted, but it didn't help me. I'm walking down the street and his VFW buddies are asking me how he's doing. Nobody knew he passed away because there was no obituary in the paper. They wanted to have their little service, but they couldn't because there was no service at all. And now I need someplace to go and remember him and work through my grief. When can we schedule a memorial service, put an obituary in the paper, and can you help me find someplace to bury him? It's important because she had to relive it over and over that whole week with people asking her at the grocery store or neighbors. They lived in row homes. The neighbors were asking what happened to him. So she had to relive this whole situation where she had an obituary and a memorial service. People could come and supported her through this difficult time, helped her work through the grieving process. So thinking about it is pretty important. It's not about you, it's about those left behind celebrating you that need to work through it. And everybody works through grief differently. Some people need to see the physical body, some people just need to celebrate the life. So it's important how you do that and what's important to you. You don't have to be buried in a suit today. You can be buried in a jersey and jeans. You know, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'll probably be buried in a Steelers jersey or a Penguins jersey. And I'll have fly poles in my casket because I'm a fly fisherman. So it's about me, my fly fishing. But when they wheel me out the doors of the chapel, they're supposed to play Here We Go Steelers. So mine's all planned. My family knows what it is. If I ask my son to go up and pick a suit out, he probably picked a suit out that I don't like that's still in a plastic wrapping. It's a gray suit with the big red stripes on it. I don't like it. It looks new, but he probably picked that suit out because it looks new. That's not what I want. I want a jersey and jeans. I wear a suit every day. This is my uniform. So I want to be casual when I'm going. And I want people to enjoy and celebrate my life of what I've done, what I've accomplished, and what I've been able to do, and what great kids I have as well. So that's what the funeral is all about. It's celebrating your life. With cremation, you can take part of the remains home. You can bury them. You can scatter them. I can send you them. A lot of things with cremation. It's growing. They actually have a place now where you can buy a tree in your yard and they mix the cremains in with it and a tree grows out of it. Then oak tree or a cherry tree or silver maple. So there's a lot of things you can do today. Any questions? Other, do I,